Welcome to Ultraspace. I'm Melissa Barrett Rhodes. Lee Mindel is one of the most celebrated architects in the world. His firm, Shelton Mindel, has won a staggering 16 AIA awards from the American Institute of Architects. Their work is very cutting edge, pared down, and poetic, and it's all about exploring the relationship between architecture, interior design, and the surrounding environment. And one of the best examples of this synergy is in Lee Mindel's own penthouse apartment.
Lee Mindel's loft is in a former hat factory built in the 1920s. The design of his rounded foyer is inspired by the shape of the water tower seen out of every window.
The foyer seems to be very much a central focus to the design.
The space is this one object reminiscent of the water tower. It comes from the second floor to the first floor, and it's contained in a glass cage, and that one shape defines all the spaces around it without necessarily having to do the traditional wall system.
Lee, you are an incredible collector of important furniture and artwork, which we see throughout your apartment.
I think it's bordering on obsessive compulsive, actually. In this space, we have a great table by Tom Dixon, and we were talking about the water tower. Well, the base of the Tom Dixon table kind of looks like a scaffold that holds up the water tower. And it's totally transparent. So the object in here, which is a transparent table, like an X-ray of a table, kind of foreshadows the table on the other side, which is a Jean Prouvé table.
The solid wood.
Solid wood, so it's like a little sort of yin-yang version.
Look at this beautiful living room.
Oh, thanks. Actually, the living room stretches the full width of the building, and with windows on the east and west side, you can see from the Hudson River to the East River. And then you look south and can see all the way downtown. So it's like a little perch up here in which you kind of feel the whole presence of river to river and the island feeling of Manhattan.
The space has such a great flow to it. It seems like it would be a wonderful place to have a party. Do you entertain often?
I entertain occasionally, not that often, not as much as I'd like to. I feel like I'm more an employee of the place than actually an occupant.
One of Mindel's favorite pieces is this mid-century bookcase designed by Charlotte Perriand. He put it opposite the view of the rooftops to play on the pattern of the urban landscape.
What are some of your other favorite objects in the room?
I think I like the space the best, actually.
As an object?
As an object, because it becomes a kind of platform to perceive the city as an object, and the rest follows that. But creating the kind of vessel by which you can see and frame Manhattan, I think that's the most important thing.
So how many bedrooms do you have?
Well, there are 3 bedrooms. We're actually in the master bedroom now. And the master bedroom, as are the other 2 bedrooms, are on the north side of the building, which doesn't have the kind of light that the south side has. So in an effort to kind of warm up this side of the building, a kind of symbol of a headboard was done, and the storage and the dressing room and the passage to the kitchen and a closet are clad in alternating grain change of Anna Gray wood. So it's kind of like a ceremonial, symbolic headboard which warms up the space that doesn't get the direct sunlight on the north side.
Since this is the master bedroom, it must be your sanctuary in a way. Why did you choose this particular corner of the apartment to be the master?
Well, it's actually the quietest corner. It's on the north side. It's the farthest from the elevator. But also it has an east window and the sun rises here. So it makes you very conscious of what season you're in because you get to experience the sun moving and the sun rising all the time. So at night it's very intimate, but then also that idea that you're conscious of the season and the light change in New York is a real luxury.
I see that you have some recessed lighting.
Well, in front and back, the conflict always with places that have interesting views is that interior lighting is reflected in the glass at night, which turns black, which kills the view. So we incorporated shade pockets and lighting into a kind of disciplined area so that the light bulb isn't reflected in the window, and it also incorporates the shade devices. So you can have an ambient lighting and still see the view.
These linens are so beautiful and crisp. Did you...
A lot of ironing. I slept in a laundry bag in the corner last night. But the nice thing is to take something which is so generic like linen and so plain, you know, like laundry bags or mail bags, French mail bags were done in that kind of thing. And if something so honest and so simple like that is elevated to be something elegant, and then it's nice to take things that are kind of fancy and bring them back down.
Well, it looks very comfortable and very luxurious.
You'll have to try it out sometime.
The master bedroom adjoins the master bath, which has chrome faucets that Lee Mindel designed for Waterworks, the bath fixture manufacturer.
There's so much light in every room in this apartment.
Well, with a window over there, we were able to actually put an opening in the building on axes with the table, as if Manhattan's view becomes a painting above the sofa.
I see. It's almost like a picture
It's a
window,
picture.
and it's very picturesque the way it frames the city view.
And the neat thing is that not only do you get light and views, you get light vertically, light and views, and even, as Carol Merrill would point to door number 1 or 2 or whatever, the kitchen is over here, and you again get to see outside through the building again from window to window, east to west. And the functional thing about this is that if you want to have an open scenario, it's completely open, or you can do various levels of closure. So if you want to put this over the island, the center panel becomes centered on the table with the painting on this side and the view on that side. And then you can access back and forth, or you can move them in any combination.
So this painting really echoes the
well, it's the idea there's an
size of it.
object on each axis, but it's the city here. We actually made the dining table because it's really like a piece of architecture, the table. It kind of grounds the space. So if it was a distraction from what was going on, you wouldn't be able to make the connection through from window to window. Behind each of these panels and doors is something very functional, because the only way you can give the semblance of looking organized is if you can be disorganized behind something.
And then the stuff that you choose to show is that much more sculptural.
Yeah, you kind of see it more because you don't have so many distractions. Like, this is a really fun piece. They're almost like bubbles that appear in the air and that just float, but they are able to take the light and juxtaposed against the steel. It's such a nice imagery of the way to reflect and refract light.
And it's such a sinuous shape against some of the cleaner lines in the space. It really
It's
pops.
pretty pared down, though. It looks like a little kid might have been blowing bubbles and then you made it into glass.
This serpentine staircase was custom made by a metal craftsman. It was designed to twist in 2 different directions so you can see more of the view while you climb the steps.
So the double turn in the stair, you arrive into the interior of the water tower on the 2nd story, in which there's a perfect circle in a square. What was the foyer downstairs below becomes a kind of sitting room observation post upstairs. And you had remarked about how the glass walls continue. They go all the way up and culminate in this framing of the view. And upstairs, above the living room, we actually have an outdoor space which is enclosed, which is the opposite of what's downstairs. And on the north side, where we have an enclosed space in the bedrooms, we have an open space. So again, you get to experience the city completely flipped, sort of a yin-yang. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Manhattan is at our fingertips everywhere.
Lee Mindel's firm, Shelton Mindel, drew from Manhattan's diverse architectural landscape when designing this observation post, referencing everything from the crown of the Statue of Liberty to the water tower on his own roof.
It's so interesting that downstairs you have a view of the city, and upstairs in the garden you have a view of trees.
Well, what could be more private and more intimate than having your own outdoor space that people can't see you? And so we created a kind of urban garden upstairs in which the trees become objects that sit like artwork on a terrace or a deck. And I must say it's incredible, because to be in Manhattan and to look and to hear the sound of leaves and trees is really a miracle. And the faint, distant sounds of the city are very mesmerizing when you're up here.
Well, you've certainly done something that you can only do in New York, which is celebrate the city, the view, the urban landscape, and bring it inside and make it very much your own in an individual way.
As Cindy Adams would say, only in New York, kids.
Only in New York. Considered 2 of the most important young architects working today, Gizu and Mojgan Hariri are not only partners, they're sisters. And one of their most interesting and dramatic designs transforms a typical New York City brownstone, one of 2 homes owned by product designer Michael Aram, into a modernist refuge. And it's all centered around light. You are a product designer specializing in metalwork, and you have the pieces made in India where you spend half of the year.
I've been living and working in India for the past 16 years now, so I've always maintained a home there and a home here.
And so what is it about this home that you wanted to be different from your home in India?
Well, I wanted to bring a bit of India with me to New York so that I would never feel really homesick for either culture. People have said that my New Delhi home feels very New York, and in a way I think my New York home has the same kind of sensuality and monumentality that a lot of the Indian architecture and design has.
Michael Aram selected Hariri and Hariri to help conceive all 3 floors of his New York City townhouse.
With Michael's apartment, what we try to do is combine this idea of East and West, industrial objects and materials with very textured, almost handicraft work.
This is one of several living spaces that are considered the public spaces in the house.
I wanted to structure the house so that all the spaces would be open to one another and there would be no walls in the space at all. Because it's a brownstone and not very wide, it's a 20-foot wide building, our focus was to keep the maximum amount of light traveling through the space, so we decided not to have any walls and try to maximize on a transparency with the space.
Can you describe how you wanted the layout of this room to be?
Yes, well, I wasn't looking for a lot of small furniture. I wanted to echo the monumentality of the architecture. So my choice in furniture was that it would be big, bold, and sort of minimalist, and be a good backdrop for objects, as well as being comfortable and conversational.
And which objects in the room did you design?
Well, certainly everything in metal. I've made the coffee table, which is a solid cast piece, fire screens, vases, bowls.
They're absolutely beautiful. You decided to use concrete floors throughout the apartment. It's such a cold material, but in this space it feels so warm and inviting.
Well, I think it has a wonderful texture, and in fact, for me, it looks a lot like stone.
We used stucco, which is very textured, very handmade, and hand applied with a trowel on the fireplace. So the fireplace becomes, I would say, this kind of a sculpture, basically, that warms the place.
Can you tell us a little bit about the design of the outdoor space?
Absolutely. Since it's a minimalist house, people imagine that I'll have a minimalist garden, but that's not me. I like to have all my flowering shrubs and my flowers. I even managed to grow roses in the backyard, which is quite a feat.
That's particularly hard if you're away 6 months of the year.
Absolutely. This is my library. It's where I read, relax, watch TV, and have dinner in front of the television. This chair is also one of mine. It's called a skeleton chair, and it's one of my earlier pieces. It's actually very comfortable, which is surprising because it looks like it would be quite uncomfortable. Another piece is the screen, which for me is interesting because it was the beginning of my starting to abstract my work from the more literal, narrative, organic shapes to this more abstraction of natural forms. The crisscross of the screen sort of mirrors what you would see if you looked up at a tree at night with the branches crossing against the sky.
And what about this fantastic urn behind you?
Yeah, this is a piece which I picked up in India. I actually bought it in a village, which was unbelievable. I was driving through the village and spotted this piece, which I recognized to be a Chinese import piece, which was used during the India-China trade in the 19th century.
My gosh, so how did you get it here? Did you just haul it on the back of an elephant?
Pretty much, pretty much.
One of the main elements of this apartment is what we call a light wall. It's a kind of a vertical wall that connects the entry floor to the living room floor. And it's artificial light, of course, but it's a thick wall in a way that greets you as you come in.
The light box is 20 feet high, 2 stories high. I made the light box in New Delhi and shipped it here, and we installed it.
It's such a beautiful backdrop to the objects that you have on the platform in front of it.
Yes, especially the Buddha head, which is Myanmar period from Burma, which I collected. And also it mirrors the sliding glass doors to the bathroom, which is so interesting. So you have the light box and also the same kind of translucent panels as doors.
It's exquisite. And what about the sink in here?
Sink is exciting. I found that in a village of India called Jaisalmer, and it's made out of a stone called Jaisalmer marble. And I found it outside of a house. It was the slop sink for the cows to eat the leftover food, the leftovers.
You're kidding.
Absolutely. It's an incredible piece. It's a solid piece of stone.
From slop to work of art.
Exactly.
And I see that the translucent panels are also carried into the kitchen and dining room to separate them.
Yes, they are. There are 3 panels here which slide and actually open the room up completely or shut it off completely.
And in the kitchen, you've designed a lot of the hardware.
I've designed all the hardware in the house, which was really nice to do, considering it was all site-specific. And in fact, for the kitchen hardware, I've mimicked the texture that I use on the backsplashes, which are solid cast aluminum, each measuring 18 by 18 inches, and each weigh pretty much as a tabletop. They're pretty massive.
Such a beautiful texture on the backsplash.
Well, not only is it a great texture, but it's so easy to maintain because it doesn't show any dirt or dust or fingerprints or anything. So it's just been absolutely an ideal material for that.
It's a kind of a composition of, as I said, very clean and industrial material together with very hand applied and more crafty and textured material.
Now, in the dining room, what else did you design?
Well, I did the dining table. Because of the scale of the room, I was able to make a 10-foot custom table for myself, which is really fun. It's a dark ebonized teak, which is all hand carved, with stainless steel pedestal legs.
And this floating metal ledge over here is so exquisite.
It's one of my favorite elements in the house. What's wonderful about it is at night when the candles are lit, it looks like the flames are just floating on the top surface of the steel, which is so magical. It's an interesting piece as well because not only does it provide a barrier from falling over, but it's a surface where I can lay plates out or buffet items if I'm having a large party, or art objects out on.
The other element, of course, is the stairwell and what we call, glass and ice kind of treads. So they're very light and they continue as they go up in that mode.
Your master bedroom has such an airy feeling to it.
It does. It has a beautiful volume to it, thanks to the fact that it used to be the parlor floor, so the ceiling heights are about 14.5 feet tall. It's like a big giant cube, actually.
Because the room really isn't that large square footage wise, but it feels so much larger because of the ceiling height. And what adds to the airy feeling of this room is the light box that kind of comes up through the stairs to this level.
Yes, it reaches this level, and then from this level onwards, there's a glass cube, which creates a sense of privacy for this room.
I see that you have some 1940s furniture mixed with Eames mid-century modern pieces. It's a really clever juxtaposition.
For me, it's a very personal space, so I have a lot of my favorite objects here in the bedroom. I have a head, which is a tribal lost wax metal head. It's a beautiful piece from Madhya Pradesh in India. I have the mirrored tables from the 40s, which I really love. One of the elements that I was quite keen on having in the room was a ceiling fan, which for me is again like a homecoming and a reference to India, where all of the rooms have fans.
And it's a very modern fan, though.
It is.
And it seems that there are so many different layers of textures and colors in this room, even though they're all shades of white.
Absolutely. The chinchilla was my departure point for the color scheme. I wanted a very vanilla feeling in the room. So there's the carpet, which is hand-woven wool carpet from India, the chinchilla, and the colors of them are very creamy and white. This is a great piece. It's special for me because it has that dual function of the window seat, like you and I are enjoying it, as well as storage for all my clothes from below.
Oh.
Yeah, so these all open up.
Fantastic.
Oops, and down close.
I'm noticing this amazing
chair or stool? What
It
is
is a chair. It's actually a Nigerian chair, which is quite interesting. It really is like a piece of sculpture there, isn't it?
It's fantastic.
And it's a wonderful place to sit and just look up at the sky.
Is it comfortable though?
Not at all. Why don't we go and enjoy the garden?
Okay, thanks for giving us the cook's tour.
It's been my pleasure.
With his signature fusion of the classic and the modern, renowned interior designer Thomas O'Brien transformed this 19th century schoolhouse into a luxurious 6-bedroom home. Tell us a little bit about the history of this house. I know there's a long history.
The house has a lot of history. The house was originally built in 1833 as a schoolhouse. It was an academy. It's a neoclassical building, and in the 1920s, actually about 100 years later, there were these neoclassical revival additions that were made to the house.
And you referenced a lot of these past classical details throughout your renovation.
There were certain things that I used. There are beautiful arch doors by the fireplace that were so beautiful. So basically what I did is take the profile of the casing from the arch doors, and then it repeated throughout, and at the same time I created a height at which all of the window casings and the door casings became uniform.
Thomas, this main room is such a big room, and the furniture arrangement is very unconventional.
Well, there's no dining room in this house, so I had to decide what to do with the dining table. And since it's so large, I thought I would divide the room by this table that I designed and keep the sort of framework of it light. And on the one end, towards the front door, there's a seating area and TV behind the folding screen. On the other side, this desk and bookcase behind. And then to the other far end of the living room, there is the fireplace and a pair of sofas facing each other. And, you know, they function for different things.
And I see a lot of lamps around the house.
I've always loved lamps. This lamp in the middle of the living room is sort of an interesting one. It's a great Murano glass lamp. Very early on in setting up the house, it was one of the first things to get set.
I think it's a good point to make too, that you don't necessarily have to do built-in or recessed lighting to achieve a really beautiful glow. This room is so filled with sunlight. It's so toasty and warm.
Thanks. This is the sunroom, which was part of the 1920s addition to the house. It's been sort of in the renovation enhanced a bit. I added the panelization to the ceiling. The fireplace was just red brick. I loved it sort of whitewashed in this flat paint. It had sort of this California modern kind of feeling to it. This room kind of incorporates a little bit of wicker, a little bit of antiques, a little bit of kind of a mix of things, the kind of thing you would expect in a sunroom.
And it feels a little bit more casual with the textures and the colors.
Definitely. This room is casual because it opens to the garden. People come back from the pool here. It's a nice early evening kind of room, or a room that's great in the morning.
This hallway is so light and bright, and you'd think with a long hallway that you'd feel enclosed and that it would be so dark.
It's all painted in this very, very high gloss industrial coating.
Well, it's very luminous, but it's also kind of this incredible contrast with the black glossy doors, which are so unexpected.
It all kind of fit into the feeling of the schoolhouse or a boarding school. It just felt right.
And that theme is carried into the master suite that we're in now.
The bedroom is sort of a group of rooms that have been assembled from a series of different rooms, and that was sort of the character of all of the upstairs. The dressing room was a fabrication of a kind, because it was really just a bedroom. It's kind of a combination of canvas panels and the black doors together, and for me, it's the closet I always wanted.
In the master bedroom, there are some pieces that you designed as well.
The bed is the Anne bed from the Hickory Chair line, and there's the Abington armoire. It's a room that kind of shares a lot of the things that filter through the whole house, of traditional and modern things together.
And the master bath, which is in the center of the series of rooms. You've got the master bedroom on one side and then the dressing room on the opposite side.
Yeah. All of the bathrooms were definitely things that I had to redesign and redevelop, but bathrooms are something that I love to design. Definitely, again, kind of vintage modern. It feels sort of late 40s. This is one of the rooms in the house that had a lot of sort of reinventing. Not much of the kitchen was worth keeping.
So none of the cabinetry was actually original to the space?
No, this is a great new group of cabinets, all they're sort of Swiss made.
It's very unusual to use marble as a kitchen countertop. I mean, do you worry about it scratching, or was it?
I mean, I love white marble, and I think it's a great kitchen counter material. It reminds me of great images of sort of Tuscan kitchens.
What about the island?
The island is a table that I designed specifically for here that's based on a 1930s original. And the table ends up being the place, and many times where meals really happen. Breakfast certainly, a lot of times lunch, even dinner. It's great to cook and then just serve in sort of groups around it. And I think that's what happens a lot these days. There's sort of this feel to this place that references, and some of the choices I made have to do with that kind of school-like or sort of public building.
Institutional.
Kind of, but whether it's a boarding school kind of thing or something. But,
Very New England.
Yeah, I think so.
Meet National Geographic explorers Lisa Ling and see the many treasures she's collected from her travels around the world. Exotic finds that have made her home into a modern haven in the middle of Manhattan. Then we're off to New York's Fire Island to do some exploring of our own as we revisit the mid-century modernist movement pioneered by architect Andrew Geller. And we'll find out what the creative director of MAC Cosmetics and the creative director of Gourmet Magazine did to make over their historic brownstone. It's chic and clean and oh so current.